Mason against Martin, ringside at the Royal Albert Hall, Rod Douglas alongside Harry Carpenter.
And so these two giant men come together in the centre of the ring. Gary Mason, the British champion, 17 stone 8 on the left, and the much smaller figure, relatively, of Everett Bigfoot Martin, weighing 16 stone 11. So some 34 stone odd of heavyweight in this Albert Hall ring. And Mason tonight seeking his 34th successive victory as a pro. Well, Everett Martin, the American, wearing black, has been described over the years in the American press as game, has a good chin, but has also been described as a blown-up cruiserweight, which I think he is, and also as a plodder. Well, some of those are not complimentary verdicts on the man, but he does have a reputation of being able to go the distance with people like George Foreman. And Martin is, in fact, the only fighter who's managed to take Foreman all the way in George Foreman's recent comeback. Mason is now ranked number 6 in the world by the WBC. Back in the ring just 3 months after struggling to win at Wembley over Mark Wills of America, who took him the full 10 rounds and also gave him a cut over his left eye. Martin conceding 2 to 3 inches in height here. A butterball of a man. Martin weighed 16 stone 4.5 when he fought George Foreman, and that was last July. Now he goes 16.11, almost half a stone heavier. 3 years ago in a fight he only weighed 11 stone 13. Mason taking his time and employing a heavy left jab. That's a good right hand, and I thought for a moment Martin was going to go. And he has gone now. 2 more punches, but up very quickly. 30 seconds still to go in this round. Well, if Mason can achieve a 1-round win, where it took Foreman 10, that won't do his standing in the world any harm. Well, Mason did what was required of him in the first round, but one has to say that Martin showed almost nothing except a sort of willingness to put his head in the way of punches and to try to take them as best he could. But there suddenly came a little flurry where he wasn't able to take them without going down. And here it is again. Mason seeking the way in, a left to the body and a right to the head. And momentarily, Martin went down, but up without a count. Well, Mason is building a very impressive record, and he's now got the best winning record for consistent wins of any heavyweight, top-ranked heavyweight in the world. Now that Tyson has been beaten.
Seconds out, round 2.
Mason, the British champion, in red, against Bigfoot Martin. Bigfoot calling himself after a mythical monster that was much in the news in the United States some 10 years ago. A sort of abominable snowman of America. when he fought George Foreman last July. Martin conceded 2 stone to him. He was down in the 8th round from a right uppercut, but then went on to go the full 10 with Foreman. But he very clearly is a lumbering, plodding man. And Mason quite sensibly taking his time, maturing all the time, Mason, not trying to be flashy. It's a very useful left jab, but Martin throwing very few punches, except the occasional rather lame left jab and an occasional left hook. It's a better right from Martin. And that also is a useful looking straight right from Martin. Beginning to get aggressive. Martin's face puffed where previous opponents have hit him. Mason able more or less to let the punches go as he wishes. Martin very puffy around the eyes, but he came into the ring like that. And Martin looking very, very shaky indeed. Looking more and more discouraged by the moment. Martin takes a deep breath as he goes back to his corner while we join Gary Mason. Well, it's an impressive record that Mason has set up. He's been a pro now for 5.5 years, and so many of his fights have been against Americans, and so many of them have been very, very fast indeed. But he struggled a bit against Tyrrell Biggs until he found a couple of good punches at the end of the 7th, and he certainly struggled against his last opponent, Mark Wills. Rod Douglas is with me, the former ABA champion. What do you make of Martin at the moment?
Well, he's got to be bigging for Gary not to throw the 1-2. Gary's looking very sharp, and every time he throws the jab, he's catching Martin. So he's got to be asking not to throw the 1-2, otherwise he'll be in trouble.
He's not impressive.
Yeah, definitely not.
Seconds out, round 3.
You'll notice how Martin crossed himself as he came out of the corner. He is, in fact, a born-again Christian. And he spent a few seconds on his knee, on one knee in the corner, when he came into the ring, and said a few prayers and waved his right fist in the air. It's said that when he fought Foreman, he was shouting out between rounds, "It's my time, Lord." Unfortunately, it wasn't. British boxing still reeling from the rather abject defeat of Lloyd Honeyghan a couple of weeks ago, and badly needs a clean, decisive win here from Gary Mason. Well, Martin decided to get a bit cheeky. Mason is trying to make him pay for it. And when Mason does, he begins to look a little too ragged. I prefer to see him keep his boxing going rather than to start swinging wildly. I think he can work this man over and beat him without going mad. Occasionally Martin throws this rather dangerous looking straight right. That was a useful uppercut from Gary Mason. He needs a few more like that to get rid of the man inside. It's the sort of rather mauling and lumbering stuff that you expect to get from men who weigh this much. You can't expect lightning footwork. Martin's still standing there and taking it. And Martin has picked up a little bit of a cut on the right eye, I think it is. And Mason also has got some sort of injury on the right eyelid. So, all that mauling inside has brought about damage to them both. Now, when Mason fought Wills, it was the left eye that caused the trouble, and that's Martin using that same cry I was telling you about. It's my time, Lord. Well, he looks across there and sees that Mason is cut. It's not a big one, but it's in an awkward place on that right eyelid.
Both then starting with early injuries that didn't get any worse, and the middle stretch of the fight remained the same. Nothing dramatic, but Mason adding to his lead. We rejoin it, 3 to go.
Round 8. Mason, the British champion in the red trunks. Everett, Bigfoot Martin from Texas, the man who went 10 rounds with George Foreman, and trying to go 10 rounds here with Mason, or even trying to beat him. And there's a bandage working loose from Martin's glove, tucked away by Dave Paris. Standing there, taking punches he really shouldn't be taking. Well, Martin was brought over here as a man capable of standing up to punishment, and he certainly proved that all right. But perhaps we would have liked to have seen Gary produce a little more than this. It's a fairly pedestrian performance against a man who hasn't looked too threatening, except occasionally with a straight right hand. at this stage of the fight, really, Mason shouldn't be allowing Martin to open up like that. This crowd absolutely thirsting for some big punches from Mason. Very much on Mason's side. He only has to show a little bit of aggression. And the cheering starts. And that's a pretty winded American that goes back to the corner. Everett Martin. But has taken everything that's come his way. And is still in sufficient shape here to come back with some attacks of his own against Mason. And we can get an example of the way Mason allowed Martin to come at him here and open up on him and really didn't know what to do about it at the time. But Mason is a long way ahead by my reckoning. I can't think that he's lost a round, and he's dominated throughout, principally with the left jab. But now this crowd would love to see him throw some rights.
Seconds out, round 9.
2 rounds to go. Mason in red against Martin from the United States. Mason looking for his 34th successive professional win. It's the best winning record of any ranked heavyweight in the world at the moment. Only twice has Mason been taken the distance. Once in his last fight with Mark Wills of the United States, and quite a long time ago against Oscar Holman from Philadelphia. That was back in 1986. A little bit open-mouthed now, beginning to breathe a bit hard. Of all the hard work done at the Gillingham Barracks, he's still finding this tough going. People like Everett Martin really are extraordinary. Here he is, walking onto left jabs all the time, but never stops plodding forward. He seldom takes a backward step. He just inches his way forward, takes another punch, still comes on. Martin still chucking the right over occasionally. Round 9. 1 to come after this. Closing seconds of the 9th. And so 1 round left now for Mason to try to do what George Foreman couldn't do, and that is to stop this man, Everett Martin. Well, Rod, I take it you agree with me that Gary is a long way ahead, even though he hasn't looked all that spectacular.
That's right. Everybody wants to see Gary look good. And Gary must be getting frustrated himself because he wants to please everybody. But He's got to get the punches flowing and look good, especially in the last round.
Why do you think he hasn't opened up more in this fight? Do you think it is lack of confidence, or is he perhaps under orders from the corner?
I really don't know. I'm thinking probably Everett's style, Martin's style. You know, he's a plodder. Gary's a little bit of a plodder too. Maybe it's a clash of styles that makes a difference.
Right, thanks, Rob. So, the last round coming up.
Seconds out, 10th and last round.
3 minutes for Mason to prove that he can do something George Foreman couldn't do. Mason in the red trunks, the British heavyweight champion. 33 wins behind him. Great opportunity tonight at the Albert Hall to have really brought this crowd alive and brought British boxing back alive in this fight against Everett Martin. It hasn't happened so far, but there's still time. Martin's still prepared to have a go. A little bit of a crack of heads there, and Martin didn't much care for it, but Paris brought him back, straight back in. Get on with it. Mason surprised us all with the efficient way he finished Terrell Biggs. It was wonderful to see him do something similar here. It's all getting a bit ragged. I think Mason, frankly, is tired of swinging punches at this man. Coming alive, throwing it all in now. No reason whatever now to save strength. It might all have been different if we'd done this earlier. Closing seconds of this fight. And the final big flurry seems to be over. Well, a big effort by Mason in the closing moments. George Foreman couldn't stop that man, and neither could Gary Mason. There's a lot of booing going on. Heaven only knows why, because Mason has won it by wide margin, and there can't be any reasonable doubt about that. But at the same time, you have to say that it's rather like the fight he had 3 months ago with Mark Wills, a rather messy fight. But he won that one on points and got cut. He's won this one on points and been cut. So Gary Mason marks up his 34th professional win in a row. But that's the 3rd time and the 2nd time in a row that he's been taken all the way.
Certainly wasn't the fight the crowd wanted, possibly wasn't the fight or the performance that Mason wanted. The judges were convinced enough, though. They gave it to Mason 98.5 to 97. The former British champion Andy Strawn. Angle suffered a swelling above his right eye early in the fight. He's overcome that. He's in the black trunks. Commentator once again, Harry Carpenter.
Checking out. Round 8.
The challenger in white, Andy Strawn, and the champion Derek Angle. In Gravesend, formerly out of Camberwell, where he was known, not surprisingly, as Del Boy. Angle beginning to use his right hand a little more. That's a good right hand. Oh, what a right hand that was. I said he'd do it with the left hook. I was wrong. He's done it with the right, and he's knocked his man out. What do you know about that? Derek Angle retains his Commonwealth Cruiserweight title with a sensational right hand in the 8th round in a fight that could so easily have been lost early on had it not been for the really skillful corner work that got that swelling over the right eye down and enabled him to continue and in the end to triumph. Tremendous right hand finish. And Strawn is only just getting to his feet. This is how it ended. It was a tremendous right hand. Look at that, chopped in, right on the point of the jaw. And the moment he hit the floor, you knew that Strawn was never going to get up. Another look at it from a different angle. He'd always been the left hook before that looked so powerful, but suddenly, when he brought that right into play, it was all over.
Derek Angle producing the big finish that eluded Gary Mason tonight. A successful defence for Derek Angle. Now let me point you in the